Hey everyone, before we get started, I really quickly want to thank you guys all. So, I have now reached more than 600 subscribers at the time of recording this, and it is truly amazing. I really want to thank Martel for shouting me out in this video, and I want to thank you guys all for coming to this channel and following along for this amazing journey. Besides the Magic Towers videos, I would also like to try out some other stuff like tutorials and things like that, so definitely stay tuned for that. Anyways though, enough talking for now, let's get started. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Magic Towers Resort. So, in the last episode, we worked on the area behind the park. We made the bus stop and we started working on our shopping, dining and entertainment area over here that will later expand into this direction once we get back into that. But for now, I wanted to do something different. So, I was actually gonna continue with the parking lot in this episode, but I figured that might be a bit too boring after we had already done the bus station. So I figured we'd actually go back inside of the park again and work on the next area before we jump back to the parking lot, so you get a bit of variety going on. I think that might be a good idea. Anyways, let me know what you think though. So the next area is going to be placed right next to the desert area. So from the desert area we're going to transition into a more vegetated area with a slightly more moist climate basically, and it is going to be a bit of a jungle area. Now, not just a normal jungle, as I've said in the very first episode, the whole theme of this entire park is going to be a bit more fantasy-like. We are going to apply that to our jungle area as well. So, in particular, there's one specific concept art that I'm basing this area off. It is a concept art by Rook Monkey, if I'm not mistaken. I had to go through a lot of weird links to get to that name, because sadly when something gets posted on Pinterest, it seems to be impossible to find the original artist anymore. But hopefully I got it right with Rook Monkey, so thank you for that work. Perhaps if you look it up, Rook Monkey Jungle, you might be able to find the picture that I'm talking about. So you can actually see what I'm basing this on. Anyway, so since I can't actually show it to you right now, I'll actually explain what it kind of looks like. So the main thing are some very round, natural-looking structures with very thick wooden beams that are supporting it. All the buildings seem to be round and they kind of have a bluish tint to their roofs. It is slightly reminiscent of some Japanese temples almost, but in a very different shape. So, and then at the bottom it gets a bit more, there are a bit more rocks and tree branches kind of growing over the path with little stands on every side, which is apparently where the residents of this type of area would do their shopping. So that's what we're going to be building in this area right here. And again, if you want to look it up, you can probably find it by looking up Rook Monkey Jungle. And you might be able to find it. The other thing that really identifies this area is very large trees that really almost act as a roof above the area. Or at least that's how the concept art works. And I'm not sure yet how we're going to translate that into a park that attempts to be more realistic. So we'll have to figure out and look at reference images to figure out how people will be able to do that in real life to kind of get a similar effect without completely going overboard and blocking the entire view and also making it way too expensive to actually build in real life. Because that is something that I want to talk about. Anyways, enough rambling for now. Let's actually get building. So the interesting thing about this team is that it is going to be very different from the teams that we have done so far. So most of the other teams that we've done so far are very man-made, or at least very focused on that. And this team is going to be a bit more organic. So we need to get in more organic shapes, also showing that a civilization has decided to build here. And it's kind of overtaken the area while still respecting the natural materials and shapes that you find in the area. So, as I said in the intro, we're going to be building a lot of round buildings, or at least that's what I'm basing it off of, and that's what I would like to do as well. Now, the interesting thing about Rollercoaster Tycoon, of course, is that there aren't a lot of options when you are building round walls and things like that. So I had to be very creative and try out different things that are kind of round to achieve the effect, or at least achieve an architectural style that I was satisfied with and that looked interesting enough without just using the same curved wall pieces that we have in the game over and over again. Before we get to any actual structures though, I first wanted to set the tone of the area with the vegetation. So in the previous area we used a lot of drier plants, but here we can get into some more jungly type of plants. And as you can see me do right now, I'm already starting with the tree trunks, or at least the tree branches that are kind of going over the paths and kind of growing throughout the entire area, kind of overtaking it a bit, if you will. And I found it very important to show this like straight away when you look into the area, so you get a clear picture of what this area is going to be about. And I will try to do that with every area if I can. So at this point, it's just a lot of experimentation with how to make this B&M track actually look like a tree root. I think it works. I could probably add another track or two, but I think I like how it looks right now, and especially with some plants on top of it, it really feels quite natural instead of looking just like coaster track. So here I'm trying to use every trick in the book to get round shapes. So of course we have the curved walls, which is great, but that's about it if it comes to like round building parts. So instead I'm actually putting in a pumpkin there in the middle, which might be a bit odd, but it is the perfect size for the type of building that I'm building here. So I figured if I actually not use that and incorporate that, because it does have a very interesting texture and it gives an interesting shape to the building. So it's just a bit of a detail there. Not that these buildings are actually going to be made out of pumpkin, but we have to work with the materials that we got here. And I suddenly found that the pumpkin might actually be quite useful. Again though, I'm adding another tree branch here that goes over the path, and the hardest thing about starting with this area is actually figuring out how we can do this in the most realistic manner that we can, because there are not a lot of existing theme parks that try this sort of idea. So my biggest source for reference images was actually from World of Avatar in Animal Kingdom at Walt Disney World. Now, if you don't know about this, in Animal Kingdom, they actually built an area around the movie Avatar, and by that I don't mean with the waterbenders and all that, but I mean the blue guys, the Na'vi, that live on an alien planet that eventually gets destroyed, spoiler alert, by humans. That area is one of the most impressive theme park areas that I've ever been to. It has giant rocks floating in the sky, basically sky islands, connected by pieces of root and branches that spread everywhere. There are waterfalls in the area. It is stunningly beautiful. It feels very natural, even though it is very alien-like. It's quite unreal to walk around in that. But the very interesting thing about that area is that it uses a lot of verticality as well, because they need those sky islands up there high in the sky, basically, or at least make them appear like they are. And that is something that I definitely took some inspiration for in this area to get the trees going. So as you can see here, I'm already filling the roof with a lot of shrubbery. I think that will also help with making it more as if you are in a heavily forested area with giant trees hanging over it, without actually having these branches going over the path way up high. So we can already start making it look like there are more trees there by just putting some on the roofs and the structures that we already have anyways. So that's the trick that I'm trying to apply, but later on we'll actually get a large tree in there as well. and we'll make it sort of just a little bit stick out over the path, but not actually go too far. And hopefully if we layer that correctly in the end, we can actually achieve the effect that I'm looking for here, which would be a very, or at least an area that feels like it's very densely forested, or at least a very densely, a very dense forest with a lot of very giant trees that are kind of looming over the area. But since there are going to be a lot of structures, like man-made structures in this area as well, we can use that to our advantage as well, because for every building that we place there is a large part that we do not have to fill up anymore with large trees, and I think that also really helps. So for the areas where we don't have buildings, I did, however, need to find a way to properly end the area. And for this, I'm again looking at my concept art, which uses a little bit of rocks, almost as if the path that you're going throughout this forest is kind of dug a bit deeper than the normal surface would be at. And I think that is very interesting. It also helps with the viewpoint, because that means as long as there are these walls and vegetations on the side, it means that you won't accidentally look into a backstage area. So I think that is a very good technique that we can also use here. And the front needed some kind of building, so I built this little watchtower sort of building there. It feels a bit alien-like. It's a bit weird, but I think I like it because it fits with the area because of it. So even more tree branches, and at this point I'm almost ready to build the third building. Well, I think I probably forgot to record there because suddenly there's a tree. Oh well, I should have probably checked. Anyway, so I did want to incorporate some kind of water feature as well. Probably just a little river running through the area. I first wanted it in the middle of the area, but that didn't make a lot of sense because I would like to add some show buildings there later. So I moved it back to the desert area. I figured that it might actually be a good tool to transition from the desert area to the jungle area, because this bridge will be able to signify that you're actually gonna step into a different world now. So I quite like that idea, so that's why I moved it back kind of towards the office building that we have over there. So talking about the show buildings a bit more that I mentioned for a second there, my plan for this area is going to be that it will have a large e-ticket dark ride as well. Probably a boat ride with similar system to something like Pirates of the Caribbean, or even just the river ride in World of Avatar in Animal Kingdom. I forgot the name. Anyways, though, we also need some other rides. So I was thinking a flat ride might be nice in the corner that we have left towards the desert area. Though, let me know what you think would fit well there, because I'm still kind of thinking about that, because we don't actually finish this entire area in this episode, of course. Here again, though, I'm placing some jungly trees, and it's only really 3 tiles deep, and after that, the guests won't be able to see what is after that anymore. I'll probably make a little hill outside of the park, but I don't think we need any man-made structures there to block the view of the guests anymore. I think the vegetation here is fine, and we won't be expanding any further than this anyways. So I think it is good to have some natural barriers as well, as they would probably be easier to maintain and especially just work with in general. So for this area, we're slowly gonna transition into these more man-made structures as well, but first, of course, we have to set the tone with our tree roots that are growing throughout the area. And from there we can kind of build up to the height that the center of the area has, with the large buildings and the giant trees and things like that. But it's very important that we build up to that, because otherwise, if you're approaching the area, you will actually see from a distance that suddenly there are very large things there, and it will not make sense. Especially from other areas in the park, it might actually show some of the more ugly sides of these things, the things that are needed to actually support it and things like that. Anyways, though, for now, though, I figured why not actually work on the backstage area a bit more, because then we have an idea of what our limits are for this area. So I built a little road, and to the bottom of that we can place a flat ride, would be my idea, or maybe a restaurant, and that might work as well, because, you know what, probably both. That's probably a good idea, because we have backstage access, so we can get supplies to the restaurant, and we can put a flat ride there as well properly. It'll probably fit, and then the path can kind of wrap around that. And then on the other side, we can make a very grand entrance to the dark ride that we'll be building in the next video that I do about this area. Though this area won't be what I will be working on in the next episode. Instead, we'll be moving back to the parking lot and actually continue working on that. But for now, let's focus a bit more on what I'm doing here. So I built a few parking lots there. It will probably have to be more parking lots there because of the office building. But at least we have some in there to make it more realistic. I might actually expand the parking lot area a bit more to make it a bit more realistic. So I'm not quite ready yet to connect these two areas because, you know, my idea is for a flat ride. So instead, on the other side, I wanted a building that could function as a corner building of the show building that I'm already kind of planning behind this. So you see the gray roofs there, and that would be kind of the edge of the show building. And all these structures are kind of built against it, and I think that works really well because we can kind of hide it. Anyway, so I'm kind of using a lot of round structures here again, kind of making it similar to the other building while still adding a unique touch and a different height to it. Anyways though, guys, thank you guys so much for watching again. This is about it for this video. If you like this video, please like the video. It really helps me out and it helps other people discover these videos as well, so we can keep on growing this channel. Anyways though, thank you guys so much for watching again. I hope to see you guys in the next one, and have an awesome day. Bye bye.